So me and some other AnCaps have been getting into some controversial topics, and I've seen a lot more people recently coming out on my side of things about this topic, which is IP is not P. Now, a lot of people say IP really casually around the place, expecting everyone to know what that means. It's not internet protocol, it's intellectual property, which isn't private property. It is one of those misnomer terms, one of those things, like many things that are around, like feminism, like Black Lives Matter, like democracy, that has been stamped with a label that does not describe its actions. It's been used as a buzzword for marketers and businesses for a long time, but it doesn't actually mean what the second half of it says it means. And this ties into I've probably got a video on my channel. I don't know where the video is. I've covered it quite a lot of times in brief. My gripes with copyrights and copyright law. That's a big subject in itself. Copyright is annoying. It's a nuisance. I can go to the standpoint of me being an artist and having produced art online, and in the past, back on DeviantArt, when I was producing a lot of my digital art, I believed in stuff like art theft. And art theft does exist in a way, but the way I was using it, art theft, and the way DeviantArtites, deviants, or whatever you want to call them, artists on that site, of course that site is complete trash now because they let AI in the door and now everything's ruined. But back when it was a site for artists producing their own art, which it isn't anymore really, except for the odd person on it still roaming around like me. Back then, people were like, hey, my art appeared on another person's site. Oh my god, we must stop this. This is art theft. I just heard from some guy who heard from some guy that my picture, which is only meant to be on this website, it was actually found on another website. And it's like, no shit, Sherlock. People can just right click download file, or hit print screen, capture the image, put it on their paint program, save as JPEG, and upload somewhere else. The problem is not that you have art and it is your property that is being stolen from you. The problem is that a digital file has touched the internet or touched a hard drive, and from that point on, beyond your vision, it is mass easily replicatable. I'm quite liking this phrase recently because it goes quite well with the arguments. It's easily mass replicatable. Basically, you cannot really control what happens to let's start with a digital file. That is out of your control the moment it touches a hard drive, which it probably starts on a hard drive because of things like hacking, people taking little USB flash drives, walking out of the room, putting in another computer, taking the files off, taking that flash drive, taking it back to the room they found it, sneakily putting it back there. Like, that shit happens all the time. That's not where most of it happens. Most of it happens online. You can get hacked, and then you don't know you've been hacked, but suddenly some guy has got all your files and they are on some other hard drive that is not your hard drive. And again, still, that is not where most of the stuff happens. With the duplication, the mass duplication of digital files that are supposedly belonging to someone, the user themselves might simply upload the file to a website, and guess what, you can just take that file if you're anyone, and people always take that file. They don't say they've taken it, they don't tell you they've taken it and uploaded it somewhere else, they just do it. Happens outside your vision, far from you. You don't know where it's happening, you don't know when it's happening, you don't know who did it, until some random, maybe one of your art followers, comes back to you and says, hey, I think I've just seen your image but not on your website, what's with that? And they're like, the author's suddenly like, in a panic, like, oh my god, art theft, someone stole my art and it's somewhere else now. But it's not a property, it's not a physical thing, because of the ease of this, the intangibility, the nature of a digital file. And that's just one thing. I could also go into a sound or an idea. In some cases, the writing in a book, not the physical book itself, which is a form of property because it's tangible, but the idea that you created in the book. The sound, we'll go into sound briefly. How about music? You got some music. You created an arrangement of different sounds in a certain order, and you want to copyright that or patent that or something, but someone else on the other side of the globe also, coincidentally, convergent thinking, which is just like convergent evolution, has thought of that same arrangement of notes, and they've called it their music. And you've both thought of that music. Why? Because nothing is original, because you can accidentally create an arrangement of sounds that someone else has created. You can accidentally happen upon an idea or a thought. Oh, you know, I've just attached two and two things together. I've seen something outside and I've attached it to this other idea I had, and I've created what I believe to be my original concept. Not believing and kind of being sort of arrogant in yourself that nobody else could have had that same thought, that same idea. And unbeknownst to you, some guy off in Peru or fucking Germany has thought of that exact same thought as you have, and you're trying to copyright your idea, but you know, someone else had that idea. All it took was for them to look at similar things to you and put two and two together, and they've got your idea, maybe in a slightly different order, but the same idea, the same concept. That's not property. Property is not the files on my phone, but this phone itself, not the fact that loads of people have the same model of this phone, but this one here, that's my property. This is my property. There may be thousands of these around on the globe. The idea for these, like the shape of that, the idea for that can be created again. That's not property. But this one here that I have got, because I bought it, I put, you know, I worked for money, I owned that money, I used that money to transfer in trade, mutual consensual voluntary trade, to give to a person who gave me these that I saw, and it's these particular ones. That's property. The ideas on this piece of paper, I may have thought I'd come up with these ideas, but someone else might be having them. That's not property. This paper itself, that's my property. My body, you can't replicate my body, you can't duplicate my body. You might make a clone of me, but that's become its own property over there. It owns itself. But me, this particular human, I own this property, owning myself, and so are you. But you do not own another person. That would be a theft. You know, if I was to take another person's piece of paper, that would be a theft. If I was to take the ideas on their paper, that would not be a theft. If I was to take someone's glasses, that would be a theft. If I was just to take the design of these glasses and reproduce another pair of aviators with gold, silver, whatever, mirrored lenses and just that shape, that wouldn't be theft. If I took the files on this phone, some would say IP, digital files, that would not be theft. If I went out and if I traded and bought a phone that was this model of phone, like I don't know why I'd get another one, that would be just me having the same model of phone as someone else has that model of phone. That wouldn't be theft. But for me to take their particular individual phone that is that same model, that would be theft. So IP, intellectual property, the idea that some intangible thing that you can't, that is mass easily mass replicatable or duplicatable, so it's on a hard drive. It can just mass duplicate with ease in seconds. In seconds, it can be 1 billion copies, 1,000 copies in seconds. It can be hundreds of different places, and you can't see what places those are. That's not the same as having a tapestry or a canvas painting, a single canvas painting, or maybe 5 canvas paintings that you've done yourself. The actual paintings themselves, not the idea of the colors and shapes that are on the painting, like where the lines are, what your choice is. There's blue at the top, there's green at the bottom, whatever. That is not property, but the actual physical canvas itself with the oil paints on it in that certain order that you've created on that day and that time by your hand, a thing you can hold in your hand and lift up and say, I might want to trade this, or I might not want to trade it. I'll keep it for myself for all time until I die. That is physical private property. That's not IP, that's not intellectual property. So I hope you're starting to understand the difference between private property and IP for me. Your guns, if you own them, are private property. Your body, you are an adult who can consent with informed consent to volunteering your body for saying yes for things to do with it, or saying no for things to do with it, because you know what you're getting yourself into. As an adult, a person over 18, you own yourself. You are able to own property. You are able to own the most basic form of property, your body. People under 18, their parents own them. They are not able to consent. They don't know what they're getting themselves into with owning property, or what to do with it, or giving. They cannot consent, like pets. Pets also can't consent. They are owned by the owner. Other animals aren't pets. They basically own themselves. There's that slavery thing we talked about, you know, our pet slavery the other day. And then your land is your property. It's a physical thing. It's geographically located. You can go to your land, you know where it is. It has boundaries, it has borders. If you can defend your land, then you can keep it. That's a physical private property. The same with your home. Other adults are not, I mean, they are physical property of themselves, but they're not physical property of you. So they're something you can steal if you're a property violator, like a communist or a burglar, or I guess you'd call it a kidnapper in this case. You can steal the body of someone else who doesn't consent. I'm not saying you can, I'm saying that's something that could happen, whereas you can't steal the thoughts they had. You can't steal by like copying the speech they said. You're not like stealing something. You're using your property, which is your body, like your mouth, to repeat an idea, which is an intangible thing that they said. Or you might hum a tune that someone supposedly invented as music on the radio, and you humming that tune would not be the theft of property, because it's this concept of IP, which is false property. It has to be something you can either pick up in your hands, you can feel, you can touch, you can trade. There's only a set amount of it. It's not something like it's not easily mass duplicatable. If you do a painting on a canvas, to duplicate that you actually have to take another canvas, copy it as best you can, put effort into it. You get the materials you need, buy and trade and buy the materials you need, put your own time and effort into it. It's not like bam, there's a million of it, because then it just becomes intangible at that point. It becomes not really something you can call property. It's something you can lose in an instant in 1,000 different directions. I can't really call that property. And we have, this is fresh in my mind because we've been having a lot of debates about this recently. There are a lot of good AnCaps. One of them, I believe, is called Patrick Smith, who is on Twitter, and we were talking about this. A lot of good AnCaps around who are believing similar things to me on this subject. And I think I bumped into someone who'd written a book about it as well, but unfortunately I can't remember the name of the dude. Yeah, Patrick Smith on Twitter is not the author of the book, but he's someone who confronted someone about this, and I was actually surprised that people were advocating for this thing that I've always been advocating for. I just thought it wasn't that popular an idea yet in anarchist circles, but it appears to be that it is. Patrick was saying, and he's worded this a bit wrongly. So there was some random person called Sandy Peterson. I guess this is some sort of low-level game dev or something. I don't know who this is exactly. They make it out that they're a game dev. And he's saying, as a man who hates piracy with every fibre of my being, I've seen companies I loved and men I admired destroyed by game piracy. And he goes off on a rage bender about this. And then Patrick Smith came along going, piracy, and he's not talking about physical piracy, because piracy has taken on a new meaning back from the days, you know, when there were pirates like Uar in their ships and they would invade boats on the high seas. That would be physical piracy. You bring your boat alongside another boat, use force to invade that boat, steal the barrels of wine or whatever, steal treasures from that boat and then bring it aboard your boat with prisoners or whatever. That would be physical piracy. Today when someone says piracy, they're talking about, like, you know, those BBFC warnings. What is it? You wouldn't steal a car, you wouldn't, like, about film piracy. Don't steal this digital file off this DVD disc of this movie. But the movie is not a physical thing. If you had the actual film reel of the movie in the past, that would be a physical thing that you wouldn't want to steal. And you have that reel and you play that in select cinemas, like beam some light through it to produce images in the cinema. You know, you've got that one copy, that one creation, and that's what you're beaming your film to people from. That would be physical property. But if you make duplicates of that, in the past with the film, each duplicate of that could still be your physical property. But when it becomes digital and it's just everywhere and it's just this intangible thing, like, I think once the transition from film happened, so it's not like VHS tapes, which were still like a film way of displaying the thing for an audience, they would be kind of like property, but only each individual one would be property. The idea of the film itself on that VHS would not be property. It would be like a digital art file, an idea. And that's what people use the word piracy for these days. They're using it for intangible things. And so Patrick Smith goes, piracy is generally fantastic. Again, not talking about the high seas and the boats, but the sharing of memes or ideas, or the fact that Star Wars has got out of George Lucas's control and Pepe has got out of its cartoon creators' control. It's just everywhere. Everyone uses it. Patrick Smith continues, intellectual property is an invalid form of property. I would say it's not even a form of property. It's controlling people's peaceful behaviour with their actual property at government gunpoint. True. And of course, the people who are like me in the past, believing in art theft, I was very naive to go along with that for a while. I think I started getting angry at copyright laws when I first started thinking about how can I use the music that I always enjoyed listening to in my youth on my videos and not have it being like copyright struck, or not having my video taken down. I think it's a bit more lenient these days where you can keep your video up, you just can't have it monetized on YouTube, which I don't think monetization is I don't think demonetization is censorship. I just, you know, you don't have to monetize your video to get your speech out there. Your speech can still be out there. You just don't make money from it. Again, that's just like the rules of the YouTube platform, to be honest. I had to laugh at this guy going like, men I admired have been destroyed by game piracy. I told him, that's absolute hilarious cringe. No, my life is in ruins. A file on a hard drive duplicated outside of my vision. Yeah, mate, it's gonna do that. It's intangible. And then, you know, other people, I'm on Twitter now talking about some of these arguments I've been having. Michael Fowley said, without IP there would be no tech sector, no entertainment sector, and no medicine. To which I respond, that's absolute nonsense. The medical field is physical. It also depends on the mass sharing of knowledge about the human body. So I don't know what the fuck he's thinking about. Like, if you didn't have intellectual property, you wouldn't have doctors fixing people's wounds. Like, what? Excuse me? What do you fucking mean? Maybe I should push him on that and find out what thing in the medical profession he thinks is IP. And then I was like, I can entertain you by playing guitar. I'm not actually a guitar player. I have a guitar, I don't know how to play. I wish I could play. I admire the people who can play, like my friend Dan Markland in uni, because it's a skill. You need a lot of time to devote to it to learn it, I think. But I was saying, I can entertain you by playing guitar, hypothetical, and there's no IP there, except for like the song itself. I don't care if you do a cover of my song, or if the sounds are created accidentally elsewhere, you know. The entertainment still has happened, has occurred. So he's saying there's no entertainment without IP. No, that's nonsense. And then some other guy, ZA3D's like, if intellectual property didn't exist, I'm pretty sure much of the media you like would have never existed. And I'm like, how exactly? If I come up with an idea or a sound, and someone over the hill also has had the same idea and put together the same sound unconnected from me, how have those ideas and sounds not existed? They do exist. So that's... Oh yeah, one last point. Not exactly to do with IP, but to do with property. That's basically my outlining of the basics of how is private property different from this thing they call intellectual property that isn't property at all. That's that. A separate subject. Air and water is not property. A container of water or a liquid or something, let's say water, can be your property. You've captured that water there. It's the container that's the property. It's not necessarily the water inside it that is owned by you. Why? Because you can't own the sea, you can't own the atmosphere, you can own the land that a river runs through, but the water in that river, which naturally becomes part of the air, clouds in the sky, and mixtures of a million atoms, etc., you can't own that water. Why? Because it's sort of intangible and sort of impossible. Think of trying to own seawater or own oceans. You can say you own the ocean floor in a square. Maybe you set up buoys, you anchor the buoy to the ocean floor to set up the four corners of your square of land underneath the ocean. You can say that land underneath the ocean is mine. You can't say that the ocean, the actual water that flows on top of it, is owned by you, because you can't trap that water, you can't store the water's constantly via the water cycle going up into the sky to become clouds, raining back down again. Every slosh, there's a million atoms of water going this way and that. You know, one segment, you say you've set up 1 square mile of seawater, or the land under the seawater, which is what it should be. The water itself is replaced by another square mile that kind of just drifts in because of the weather, then drifts out again. And it's not like it's even that linear, where it's just like, oh, the ocean in the north hectare is coming down and becoming the ocean in your owned hectare, and now it's going to the south and becoming not part of your owned hectare. And it's like, it's not even that, it's so chaotic and dynamic and complicated, how many atoms of water are moving from all sorts of directions in and out, all, you know, intermixing, going back out to the bit where they started. You can't have a hope in the world of owning like the seawater in your square that you outlined, because it's all different every few seconds. Like, masses of water is all different every few seconds, and that's even more complicated with air. You know, you could say, oh, I've pressurized this air in my hyper pressurized house. Someone was actually making the argument to me, it's someone I used to follow actually, who I thought was a bit of a based AnCap in some of the stuff he said, but then he comes up with this thing like, I can own air, and I'm like, you can't fucking own air, you can't own the atmosphere, you can't own a bunch of oxygen. And he's like, yeah, I can pressurize it inside my house. And I'm like, your house isn't airtight, dude. How is your house airtight? You'd need to breathe and recycle the air for a start. It'd be like a Mars colony or something. You got to cycle the air around, you got to clean it, you got to, on Earth you can get air from outside to freshen up your air and expel the CO2 polluted air from all your breathing out and stuff. But you know, you'd have to move the air in and out of the house. You couldn't make an airtight building. You might be able to make an airtight building in some kind of circumstances, like a lab, like you pour tons of money into it, like millions of pounds into creating this building that can make an airtight room somewhere in the building. I don't know how large. The larger it gets, the harder it is to do, because buildings are porous. For a start, he was making the case that his own house holds air and the air in his house belongs to him. I'm like, dude, you've got vents for your cooking, you open windows, you have to open the door to go in and out of your house to buy food. What are you talking about? I hope you can fucking see how naive that is. But say you had either a Mars colony or a pressurized building that is in fact airtight, because you poured millions of pounds into making sure all the seams of this one room at the center of the building, that particular room is the airtight room. And I believe scientists have probably done it. They've created these vacuum rooms where you could actually expel all the air, so the room's like space and contains zero air. It wouldn't be absolute zero though, there'd still be like oxygen molecules in that room. You could get as close to it as possible, but that's still not 100%, not by a long stretch. There's always going to be oxygen molecules in that room, no matter what you do to get it out. If they've been there before, and they will have been, because our atmosphere is oxygen and nitrogen, then those air molecules will there'll still be some in there, even if you expel it, like via suction or pressure zones or a giant fan or something to get the air out. Make your own vacuum form packet of a room. Even if you could, well, that was about a room that's a vacuum, it has no air in it, but if you wanted a room with your air in it, so I don't know how you'd know. You would have to, like, I don't know, colour the air or something. You can't paint air molecules so that all your oxygen is like orange, so you know that that's your oxygen that's in there, and you know when it's escaping. Oh, there's some orange coming out there, we better get that back in there. Oh, this room isn't orange enough, there must be some outside oxygen in it, so it's not my air. Damn, I haven't got my air in the room, I have to get my air in. Like, how would you know? For a start, how would you know that your oxygen is the oxygen that's in that space, and that it's been unpolluted, you haven't lost any, you haven't gained any? I mean, think about how difficult that would be. It's like, can you like put little tags on, little barcodes on each air molecule that is yours, just so you know it's still in the room? Like, how would you even do that? It's not possible. just talking about it makes it sound absolutely ludicrous. Yeah, I mean, you can't own air. You just can't own it because you'd own the room that the air's in, this airtight room, but you wouldn't own that air. And what would be the purpose of owning the air anyway? Like, I've pressurized this room full of air. Now I can trade it with you, and you all have this room full of perfect air. But can I do anything with it? Can I access it? No, because if you like open it, then a tiny bit of outside air will get in, and then it won't even be your property anymore. It'll be some polluted mixture. Someone else's air mixed with your air. So yeah, you can't make property out of water, and you can't make property out of air. And I think it's about how chaotic, mass replicatable, mass mixable, just out of control and out of your hands this is. I would say like air and water is intangible. Like you can pick some water up in your hand, scoop it into a little pool in your hand there, like, oh, I can see it there. That my water is tangible, it's in my hand, but it's not really tangible because there's a million different, there's things you can't even see going on just in that pool of water in your hand. There are air molecules transferring between the surface of the water and the air. You can't see, but there are essentially little clouds forming all around the room where the air molecules and spray have left the body of water, and then some of it's sprayed around the room, and then some of it's dropping back into the water, and there's millions of atoms mixing. They're mixing with the fabric of your hand. Like if you've got a bit of dirt on your hand, that might wash into the pool, and it's like you can't control what's going on there, you know, what's becoming steam and what's not. So I would say water is basically intangible, air is intangible, digital files are intangible, ideas are intangible, sounds are intangible, and none of these things can be property. Property is something you have that's solid, you can show people, you can pick up. It's not going to become a million things in a second. It's not going to get out of hand, out of control. You all know what it is. You can identify it. You know what it looks like, what shape it is. It's a thing that's never changing. Quite a lot of time it's like one of a kind, and it's an identifiable thing. Like, it's that thing there. I know what it looks like. I'm going to call it this name. It's always there, you know. I can transport it from here to there, and it'll be the same at the end of the journey basically as it is at the start. That's property. Anyway, long video. IP is not P. Sorry, my dudes. I know it's a controversial issue, and a lot of people are going to be angry at that, but thank you for watching.